Before NFTs, before 3D scanning, before digital collecting, there was glass, sweat, and a brand that redefined pop culture. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of the most iconic symbols in collecting history, the Coca-Cola bottle. Come with me while we talk to Devin Hart, the head of production at VeVe, and we dive into the iconic history of one of the most recognizable collectibles in the history of the hobby. Devin, tell me a little bit about what went into creating these awesome, historical, first of their kind in the world, in the physical world, and now in the digital world, Coke bottles.
So it was quite an interesting experience. Obviously, we've all had Coke in our lives, and especially being from Africa, we actually had really large glass bottles, which I can remember as a young kid running around collecting them and taking them back to dairies or convenience stores to actually give them back to get 10 cents per bottle. And that's kind of how we bought lollies. So we would run around and try and collect them. Side story, if you actually collected the plastic crates that came in, they were worth a lot more than the bottle. We discovered that later. But yeah, so it was really fun digging into this, especially just understanding the different bottles, where they came from, especially going all the way back from the original Coca-Cola recipe and how that bottle was made and came together. Literally having a cork inside that you have to pop off. That was really fun, even looking at the technology at the time, or even the glass that was available at the time during wars and how they changed color and all that kind of stuff. So it was a really fun experience. And then while we were actually doing it, we discovered this one special bottle. This was meant to replace the bottles they had, because at that time, all the bottles was basically straight. And they really wanted to have like this beautiful curved version, which was a really good hand feel. And so they came up with this beautiful bottle, which had a really round shape. And so it got produced, and as they were going through the bottling machines, they were exploding just with the size of them and the shape of them. So they couldn't really have them always straight, and the machines will burst them. So there's only two of these things actually in existence at the moment. So one is with Coke and one is with the actual glass manufacturing company. And so that's a really special thing for us to have seen, and also to understand that the collectors behind Coke. I had no idea there was people that collect so much Coke stuff. And especially in the US, people would travel across states to collect the different bottling bottles. And so, which I also had, obviously coming from Africa, we had one bottling, so it was always just the same thing. Being in New Zealand, it's always just the same one. We had no idea that there's so many different bottlers and distribution hubs, and they all were branded on the bottles themselves. So it was really fun to do that kind of deep dive, and that's definitely the fun about VeVe, is you get to experience these little things that you just didn't really know or exist, and it really brings us joy to make them for you guys.
And a really interesting thing about this one, Devin, is, sometimes whenever you all are working with source material, a lot of the research you're doing is sort of self-generated. You spend a lot of time watching old movies, trying to find old references. But with our relationship with Coke, I believe you received quite a bit of historical context. Can you talk to me a little bit about that collaboration?
Yeah, Coke has got amazing databases just full of references, full of historic things that they've kept over the years. Everything is in super high quality detailing. And it was just great. So everything we suggested, they either had an instant like, oh, why don't you do this? Or we can supply you with this. And so that was really fun. And just the openness and just especially the respect towards the product and trying to make sure that what we are producing will be for the collectors, just an outstanding piece. So as we were going through, they would be showing us just images upon images of even how the labels would change over time, explain why some of them were brown and versus some of them are clear, to do with obviously receiving glass in war times and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was just the depth of knowledge they had on the products for 100 years ago was just amazing to see. And this was one of the things that there's only one other IP that we have that's the same, and they honestly, it was a joy to work for. So
So as I look at all these bottles, Devin, we've got all glass, but one's aluminum, and a pretty big jump in time. I mean, some of these bottles look like they're from, I think, in the early 1900s. You have some really historic, beautiful, amazing bottles, but then aluminum? What's that in there for?
With the introduction of the aluminium bottle, obviously is to reduce plastic in the world, and it's something that Coke really takes seriously. And it was a great thing to work on with them as well, just to see the passion towards that side of the project.
Absolutely. And obviously, that's really important to all of us here at VeVe. One of the amazing things about all of our digital collectibles is that they are carbon free. Carbon neutrality has always been at the core of everything we do. And whenever the founders, David and Dan, came up with VeVe, they wanted to make sure that the technology was producing clean results. And it's kind of the beauty of digital collecting. Like when it comes down to it, is there is no byproduct because nothing was made. There's no shipping, packaging, manufacturing, none of that. That's why we love digital collecting. Now, on that note, Devin, one of the also amazing things about us digitizing a product like that is that we're sort of preserving history. With one of these bottles, the one that you talked about earlier, you said there's only 2 of them, I think, in the world. And one of the awesome things that we get to do at VeVe is we get to sort of tell that story, but we're also basically creating a time capsule for this piece of history and releasing it out. Talk to me a little bit about what it feels like whenever you're handling something like that. A lot of times you're making one-for-one replicas, beautiful presentations of things from movies or iconic characters. But sometimes, you're capturing a piece of history and preserving it for all time on the blockchain. What's that feel like?
To be honest, it's not a big difference for us, purely because everything we do, we have the utmost respect towards that licensor and that IP or that product that we are working on. And for us, it is a thing that will last forever. And so everything is always handled in that care. But I think for me, the thing that kind of stood out about this is just looking at the Coke and all of their hundreds and hundreds of thousands of files and what they've kept and stored. And this is just another way of preserving that legacy and preserving the fine detail of how everything looked like and felt like and the story behind it. And I guess that's what it's all about, is the story. Because in 100 years' time, at least there'll be a story about this. And that is something that is just historic.
That's why I love this job, Devin. So as we close out, what is one thing amongst these bottles, maybe one detail that the average person probably wouldn't know that you know, because you've seen every micro millimeter of every single one of these? What's a cool detail that you can pull out and sort of highlight for us?
Well, there's a few, actually. So with the aluminium bottle, we have fine condensation on the outside of it, just to show that there is liquid inside and it's been in a cold refrigerator. It was something really hard that we couldn't do, in a sense to show what's in it. So that was a way of us getting through it. The other thing is we've got liquid inside of the bottles, which if you tilt the bottle in the app, the liquid will move back and forth, which is quite a fun little thing for us to do. We were back and forth with it. Do we add bubbles? But hasn't been popped, so there shouldn't be any bubbles. So this was a way for us to try and make that work. The other thing is, as well as which we haven't mentioned, is the vending machine. Now, obviously in the previous drops, we had a Coca-Cola vending machines drop. And we really wanted to, well, I always remembered when I was a kid and after recycling all my Coke bottles, I would obviously run to the first vending machine I could and select the Coke bottle. And so I really wanted to kind of have a fun thing of rewarding the collectors by saying, hey, look, I've already purchased a vending machine and I have the Coke bottle. What we wanted to do is just bring the vending machine together with that bottle. And if you have them have a craft event, so if you press the Coke bottle, the Coke label on the machine, it will light up and your Coke bottle will fall through with all the noises that it would make. So yeah, that was just something that we really wanted to do and bring to you guys.
I think that's a super exciting one. I'm going to have a lot of fun with that. And I foresee a lot of AR footage of people doing the same exact thing being shared across our socials. With that, be sure you do track all of our socials. You see them at the bottom of our screen. We have the VeVeverse experience if you like to build. And until we see you in the next behind the scenes video, this is Corey and Devin signing off.